All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Reality's Breakdown with the Heretic Clerics. So tonight we're going to be covering Agartha and the Hollow Earth theory. Your host tonight is myself, the Belligerent Atheist, and presiding we have Matt the Apoplectic Atheist. We have Sir Jewalot presiding, and we also have the Iron Chariot. So I hope you enjoy, and please stick around for the Atheist Spotlight near the end of the show, as well as our current event, and we will be discussing it in a little bit more of a depth. All right, if everyone is ready to go. So my friend introduced me to the concept of Agartha and the Hollow Earth theory. I thought it was too good of a topic not to bring up. I'm not sure how many people are aware of Hollow Earth, and there's going to be a lot of information I'm talking about here tonight. So if at any point you want to stop and read it, please feel free to pause the video and read the slide, because I will only be skimming over some of the information. And if you want to look at more information, please just Google Agartha, A-G-A-R-T-H-A, or the Hollow Earth theory, and you can see the multitude of results. So first I would like to talk about spiritually hollow earth. That's what I'm calling it. And that's just the idea of, in ancient times, subterranean realms seemed arguable and became intertwined with the concept of places, such as Hades, the Nordic Svartalheim, the Christian hell, and the list just continues. These spiritual realms, for the most part, have returned to the ethereal or astral planes. We view them as out-of-place objects that you can't physically get to. And those intangible and impossible to improve places, you know. So I am going to share this slide. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about is Edmund Halley in 1692 put forth the idea of Earth consisting of a hollow shell of about 800 kilometers or 500 miles thick, two inner concentric shells, and an innermost core, which would be about the diameters of Venus, Mars, and Mercury, not prospectively. So these spheres rotate at different speeds, and Halley proposed a scheme in order to explain anomalous compass readings. And he envisioned the atmosphere inside as luminous and possibly inhabited, and speculated that escaping gas caused the aurora borealis. So undereducated speculations of anomalies that he just viewed. He noticed that there were some odd compass readings, and he just created a hypothesis based on it. Undereducated, but I mean, it was 1692. So also it has been proposed that Leonard Euler, or Buck would say Euler, also proposed a hollow earth idea, getting rid of the multiple shells and postulating an interior sun that was to provide light to an advanced inner-earth civilization, but there are no references for this. And then there are letters to German princess. Euler or Euler describes a thought experiment involving a patently solid earth. And we move down to our next slide while I start to skim over some of the information. In the 19th century, or 1818 specifically, John Cleves Sims Jr. suggested that Earth consisted of a hollow shell about 1,300 kilometers with openings about 1,400 miles across at both poles, with 4 inner shells each open at the poles. That's just another theory that happened. Also, Jeremiah Reynolds also delivered lectures on the hollow earth and argued for an expedition going to Antarctica, but instead joining the great U.S. exploring expedition of 1838-1842, even though that venture was a result of his agitation. Sims himself never wrote a book about his ideas. Several authors published works discussing his ideas. McBride wrote Sims' Theory of Concentric Spheres in 1826. And the list goes on from there. You can see on this there was a central sun. Again, there's some more. There's some geography here. It talks about Mount Epomeo, Italy, the Pyramid of Giza, mountains higher than the outside going inward, spaceship based to and from other galaxies. It's pretty in depth, this picture. Okay, moving forward, you get a better idea of what a hollow Earth would look like from a cross section. An inverted Earth, hollow Earth model, so the Earth is actually on the outside and everything else is on the inside. And then there's the polar holes hollow Earth model, where is the sun is in the center, which we've kind of discussed previously. In this idea, there are more recent theories. The Thule Society, which was well known by Adolf Hitler, reported much about Tibetan myths of openings into the Earth. There is even a theory that Hitler ordered a research journey for such opening in Antarctica, based on a speech of Admiral Donitz in front of a German submarine in 1944, when he claimed the German submarine fleet is proud of having built such an invisible fortification for the Führer anywhere in the world. As the story goes, Hitler and his followers wanted to create a race of super soldiers, the Aryan race, kind of like the Atlanteans, which kind of furthered a little bit into the advanced civilization idea that he'd already heard of. There's a legend which says Hitler and his chief advisors escaped the last days of the Third Reich by going through an opening in the South Pole where they discovered an entrance to the Earth's interior. According to Hollow Earth Research Society in Ontario, Canada, you can Google that too, by the way, they are still there, and after the war, the organization claims the Allies discovered that more than 2,000 scientists from Germany and Italy had vanished, along with almost 1 million people to the land beyond the South Pole. I'm going to actually, if you want to read more about some of these, just pause the video here. Or you can pause here about Raymond Bernard. And then there's Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd is the one that I really wanted to discuss. As you can read here, he flew to the North Pole in 1926 and over the South Pole in 1929. He referred to Antarctica as the land of everlasting mystery. In reference to the North Pole, he wrote, "I'd like to see the land beyond the North Pole. It is the center of the great unknown." In his diary, Byrd allegedly tells of entering the hollow interior of the Earth, along with others, and traveling 17 miles over mountains, lakes, rivers, green vegetation, and animal life. The external temperature was 74 degrees. His airplane was greeted by flying machines of a type he'd never seen before. He stated the North and South Poles were only two of many openings. You can kind of read from here. Before I get into debunking this, just based off of some physical scientific evidence, would any of the other clerics like to speak with this slide up real quick?
It's pretty amazing that Admiral Byrd would think all this. I wonder if there was some sort of physical effect from his journey, seeing how hard it was to do polar exploration back then, that could have caused this sort of mental manifestation in him.
Yeah, right. No, he could have been dehydrated. He could have been overheated. You imagine that the gear and the suits that he wore, or maybe he was flying a little too high or a little too fast. Also, Iron, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Not at this point. I'm just listening and learning.
All right. What about you, Matt?
I just want to say, hasn't it been proven that most of the Nazis went to like South America or something? That's one thing. But I also wanted to say, we'll probably go into this later, but let me know if we're going to go into it later. But gravity doesn't work that way. Like, how could water be on the inside of the shell? Wouldn't it all suck toward the sun, or be between the sun and the shell? And like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that like the laws of physics do not work that way whatsoever. But all right.
Yeah. Well, we'll go back to here, and as you can see, I think it shows in this individual graphic where there is a center of gravity. You see this small.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's why I made the point of that. Is it there? That would be the center of gravity for the shell, but the actual center of gravity for everything else would be at different points. So there would be a center of gravity between the sun and the shell as well that would be pulling the water towards that center. You know what I'm saying? So the mass of that shell would have to be so great that it would counteract the pull of the center and all these other factors. You know what I'm saying? That center, I don't think that center of gravity accounts for enough to hold everything on the inside of that shell, personally. But
no, I agree with you completely. What I was going to say is I do not believe, and to my knowledge, please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but there has been no star found, not only no star found that could be that small, but also a star that small, with my current understanding of physics, could not support fusion. Also, let's say that purportedly there was a star that was able to compress to that size. It would have way more than enough gravity just via density, molecular density, to completely envelop the Earth and pull it in. I was going to get to that, but yeah, no, you're completely right. And then before we go a little further into the science, you can check out the city of Shambhala right here, which is purportedly the capital of the center, Agartha, or Agartha. There are
Isn't
alternate
that a
spellings.
song or from a religion or something?
It's from Hinduism, actually. Hinduism talks about Shambhala, and Agartha is also mentioned in a few different legends as well. Feel free to Google it and check that out. But yeah, no, you're right. Shambhala is absolutely an important part of Hinduism. Okay, so I'm going to leave this. Sorry.
One other thing, real quick. If we had a sun in the center like that and holes at the top of the bottom, wouldn't we see like an injection of either light or photons or something coming from each pole?
Yeah, you'd have to. But that was one of the other theories that I wrote up before, is that they thought the escaping gas and light is what created the aurora borealis and the aurora australis. So that would be that. But no, you're right. It would be way too much. Even if, let's say, the sun could exist and it could be that small without crushing the entire planet, or I mean, just pulling it in on itself and absorbing that mass. Even if the laws of physics could bend or break to allow such a anomaly to happen, yes, absolutely, there would be radiation ejecting from the two poles, an immense amount. And I would hypothesize that the aurora itself would actually envelop a lot more of the northern and southern hemisphere, could that physically happen. So what I'm going to do is, I normally don't show the entire presentation like that, but I'm going to bring up contrary evidence right here. And you can pause right here if you want to read it. So this would be a good time to pause. I'm going to go back up and show one of these other pictures, and then just talk about that information while I'm showing it. And I'm going to bring up this one because this one hasn't had as much time. So contrary evidence is gravity. And that's the big one, right? The best scientific argument against that of a hollow Earth is gravity. Massive objects tend to clump together gravitationally, creating non-hollow spherical objects we call stars and planets. You don't see a hollow object because of the standard that is gravity. The solid sphere is the best way in which to minimize the gravitational potential energy of a physical object. Having hollowness is therefore unfavorable in the energetic sense. It doesn't make sense. In addition, ordinary matter is not strong enough to support a hollow shape of planetary size against the force of gravity. Someone on the inside of the hollow Earth would not experience an outward pull and could not stand on the inner surface. Rather, the theory of gravity implies that a person on the inside would be nearly weightless. This was first shown by Newton, whose shell theorem mathematically predicts a gravitational force from the shell of zero everywhere inside a spherically symmetrical hollow shell of matter, regardless of the shell's thickness. And next, a tiny gravitational force would arise from the fact that Earth does not have a perfectly symmetrical spherical shape, as well as forces from other bodies, such as the Moon. The centrifugal force from the Earth's rotation would pull a person on the inner surface outwards if the person was traveling at the same velocity as Earth's interior and was in contact with the ground on the interior. But even at the equator, this is only 1/300th of ordinary Earth gravity. The mass of the planet also indicates that the hollow Earth hypothesis is just unfeasible. Should the Earth be largely hollow, its mass would be much lower, and thus its gravity on the outer surface would be much lower than it currently is. Just by gravity in and of itself, and I'm going to pause there for the contrary evidence section, just gravitationally, I mean, we're talking about, little dudes and dudettes hanging out right here. Just gravitationally, it would be impossible, even if physically this could happen. The gravity on the outer surface and the gravity on the inner surface would be drastically changed, besides probably being burnt to a crisp by this bad boy right here. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm kind of taken aback by this whole thing. And when my friend told me about it, it was months ago that he had told me, and I decided to put a show together. When he told me about it, I literally spent a week researching this and just reading everything because it was so preposterous to me. I couldn't believe that people actually thought, with even a basic understanding of physics, that the Earth was hollow.
Real quick, does any of these counter arguments take into consideration the magnetism of our Earth and the fact that it's due to our iron core?
No, it does not. The other two sections that I had actually did not take into account magnetism. But would you like to cover that real quick?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but I know a little bit about metal and stuff like that, and that's where our magnetism of the Earth comes from, and it ties into the Aurora Borealis thing. You reminded me about it when you mentioned it, is that our magnetic shield on our Earth is created by spinning our iron core that creates the magnetic field, and it takes crap load of iron to fill that core to create such a powerful magnetic field. I wonder how they account for that.
Well, I'm pretty sure, looking at everything they're accounting for physically and scientifically, they're not. Just based on the evidence that I've seen so far, it doesn't look like they're actually accounting for any of those things. Let me pull it up to this other one so you can get kind of the geography of Agartha, the land of advanced races. So, yeah, in this graphic, it even has clouds, which I think was pretty. I mean, here's the Rainbow City right at the South Pole. That's really cool. But I don't like how the ice blocks most of the entrance hole here, if you see that. Most of the entrance hole is blocked by ice, which I think is very inconvenient. I don't know why, that would be. Well, you can see sediments, granite, basalt, and plastic basalt. That's very specific. The plastic basalt right here, and there's even water in here coming up from the surface and going in and out from the surface in its own like hydrologic cycle. It looks like, as well as man-made tunnels. I guess if they're an advanced race and they saw how shitty we were as a people, I don't know why they would want to build tunnels to come see us, because I mean, well, we kind of suck as a species.
Wait, so is that where Sasquatch lives?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe Sasquatch is just and Bigfoot are both hyper intelligent. I also like how there's like lava here in between the two layers, the inner and outer.
I keep thinking like how. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have to ask, and I'm going back a little bit, but this is, this is the first time I'm hearing about a lot of this, so this isn't necessarily my question. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with you before I ask my question so I don't look stupid. You said that they believe that the light escaping from the poles is what caused the auroras? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, sorry, they talked about escaping gas as well as ionized particles interacting with the atmosphere and the ionosphere to produce aurora borealis, and aurora australis is what they were talking about.
Well, if that was the case and the Earth was open-ended on both sides, wouldn't they be observable all the time?
Yes. Yes, they would. They would have to be, because ionized particles are going to escape 100% of the time, unless this central sun only burns for like 8 hours a day, which would fit into their theory perfectly. I mean, you have to.
That was actually kind of where I was going. Was, do they believe there's a day and night cycle in there, and how would they account for that?
I saw a video and I couldn't find it. I've been scouring the internet. It was an individual talking about hollow Earth. It was on YouTube. And he was holding up a plastic sphere, and in the middle there was a pyramid in the perfect center of the sphere, an X, Y, and Z axis, there was a pyramid, and on top of the pyramid, there was a spotlight that rotated slowly 360 degrees to provide day and night and time zones. I really wish that I really wish I was making some of this shit up, but people actually believe in the Agartha, and he believed it has to be a spotlight because a central sun is just ridiculous. And he goes through this whole hypothesis on the spotlight and talks about it as if a hollow Earth were feasible. I mean, if the hollow Earth were feasible, I mean, just think about it. Although not visually observable, the core of the Earth is observable via vibrations, primarily from earthquakes, passing from one side of the planet to the other. Using this method, geologists have been able to establish a structure of the mantle, outer core, and inner core. A hollow Earth would behave entirely differently in terms of seismic observation. I mean, I know it's not an exact metaphor, but it would be like using sonar. Okay, because sonar in the water behaves differently from seismic vibrations, but that's exactly what it would be like. It would be like pinging, into the Earth and having a laser or having a ping not return because the Earth is hollow. It's just ridiculous. I mean, in the visual evidence, the deepest hole drilled to date is the SG3 borehole, which is 12.3 kilometers or 7.6 miles deep. Part of the Soviet Kola Super Deep Borehole project. Thus, visual knowledge of the Earth's structure extends that far. So, I mean, most of these models, you go back to here and here and here. Most of these models, when they discuss the thickness of the Earth, let's see, this one actually 800 miles thick, so there's that. But I mean, some of them are much thinner that wouldn't allow for, I mean, we know how that structure works, so we would be able to say instantly, of course this is false. Buck, did you have anything you wanted to add?
We are concentrating a good bit on the convex hollow Earths. So I just wanted to put in that it's not the only model of hollow Earth. The concave hollow Earth, where we are the center people, is another model that's out there for some people. And again, with has all the sort of ridiculous theories you have with models like this, but it's kind of an interesting concept in that a structure like a Dyson sphere would be a good place to start such a sort of society inside of collecting all of the energy around it, and it would have a central sun and things like that. So this sort of distant future of Kardashev scale would have an advanced society doing something like that. So it is an interesting topic to think about in that sense as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like the inverted Earth, hollow Earth model in the upper right here that I'm highlighting. And spoiler alert on Interstellar, and I hope that everyone has seen it at this point, because if not, it's a spoiler. It's kind of like that, where there's a torus, and then in the center is where people live on the outer edge, and it goes in the shape of a torus, and it spins to produce an artificial gravity. And they didn't really get into it too hard, but is that what you're talking about, Buck?
Pretty much stuff like that. It's either way, it's the conspiracy theories that are out there. I had always thought would decrease over time with advent of the internet, but the ideas like this and flat Earth and even weirder shit are really picking up steam, it seems. Like, apparently, when the credulous got all the information presented to them how the universe works, some of them came to the ridiculous conspiracy conclusions. uh, Instead of, like, where light is supposed to be a disinfectant, it's turning out to just be a showcase. Um, and so the promulgation of things like this these days does warrant sort of this disproof that we're providing for this topic.
I wanted to, before we get too far off subject, I wanted to touch on the Dyson sphere thing as well. And as Buck said, that some people believe we are the ones on the inside. But I wanted to say that in that scenario, well, if it was us on the inside in a Dyson sphere scenario where that's what that they were putting forth, then we would, either us or the people on the outside would have had to build the Dyson sphere. And when you build the sphere, you're using it to harness the power of the sun into energy. We have no signs that that's happening, for one. But for another reason why I'm bringing it up is if they think we did build this shell, that we would have been, the civilization who built the shell would have been too big to fail, basically, like the companies in America, they would be so advanced that there would still be signs of them around, and clearly there's not. So it's not us, and if there's no sign of that. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up.
We're looking the wrong way. And then, of course, there's directed panspermia, and we can climb as far down this rabbit hole as we like.
We might have to save some of those topics for another video. But going back to the Dyson sphere, say in the Dyson sphere scenario, wouldn't you be able to look across the horizon and you would be able to see more of the inside of this inverted sphere that you were living on, rather than seeing it actually curve away from the top of your head? Or maybe you can elaborate, because I haven't done a lot of digging into the Dyson sphere, but it seems to me that in a convex sphere where you're living on the inside, that the horizon, even if we go to the edge of human eye ability to see, and we say that it would fizzle off into nothing because the human eye can only resolve so much information. So even with that, the curvature of the inner sphere would go in the opposite direction, as far as I know, unless I'm just completely wrong.
Well, my thought on that is, if you take a look, again, I don't believe any of this, but as a thought experiment, if you look at a map of the universe, we are sort of a blank black area for the most part, surrounded by the cosmic microwave radiation. So, there could be smaller structures inside the larger convex structure that would work in a similar way.
I would point out, I think you're right, BA, but also you have to think that if the sun was the size it is in our solar system now, the shell would have to be at the same orbit. I imagine it would have to be at the same orbit that our planet is now. So that's how big the shell would have to be. And I guess we wouldn't be able to see the other planets. I don't know. Yeah, that's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? For the sun to be at the same size and power for the amount of radiation we receive, then our shell would have to be at the same orbiting distance or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that would have something to do with how far we can see. But obviously, with a far enough instrument, you're right. You would see it curving back up.
Right. I guess You're talking about concave spheres in the middle of a convex sphere. Is that what I'm understanding? Where there's an epically large convex sphere where we're in the middle of, and there are smaller orbiting objects. I
Oh, I
mean,
wasn't. I wasn't saying that. I think Buck was saying something like that. I was saying that if the sun, by our measurements, is the size it is in our solar system right now, then for the power we receive from the sun, or whatever you want to call it, energy we receive from the sun, we would still have to be at the same distance we are now. So the shell would have to be that big, unless they're saying the sun is smaller, which is what they were saying earlier. But
oh yeah, I would say, speaking from, let's say we're playing devil's advocate. No, well, in this scenario, the sun would just be like a really big LED in the center of a plastic sphere, and then as far as the other planets and all the research that we've done and landing on the moon, well, that's just a bunch of government conspiracy to hide the truth that is the Dyson sphere. And I thank you. No, I'm just saying that's probably those. I mean, there's correlation and not causation there, I'm sure, but I imagine that a lot of those individuals feel that way about a lot of that stuff. Iron, did you have anything you wanted to add to our conversation?
Well, at this point, it's extremely digressing of me, but I'll say it anyway. And you'll have to excuse me for asking such basic questions, it would seem, because, like I said, this is a learning experience for me. But I was thinking about the picture that you had up a while ago, where the Earth was open at both ends, and they believe that the radiation caused the auroras. If that model were in fact the truth, or the correct model, then it would seem to me that if there was an earthquake and the ground opened, um, obviously depending on how long the ground was open, it would release a deadly enough amount of radiation from the inside of the Earth to potentially take out a large part, if not all, of the population of the area in which the Earth opened. And if I can just very terribly paraphrase Richard Dawkins here, because I think it's appropriate, he said, if we already have a reasonable and satisfying explanation, why complicate it with other things? Like, it seems so complicated. You have to dilute things so far to even hold this belief. It seems ridiculous to me.
well, it comes from ignorance, basically. When you're ignorant of any type of mechanics or physics or scientific understanding, your brain is going to make whatever connections it can, and they feel satisfying to these people, and they're always looking for these magical answers. But I wanted to say, you touched on something with the earthquake thing. Is they said that it's supposed to be 800 miles thick, so I don't know if that's probably too thick for it to reach through. But I think you made a good point. Is going back to that ejection of whatever photons or whatever the hell it is. We would have crazy electrical surges and storms taking out all of our electronics at that point, I believe, because all of it's contained within our what's the barrier around the outside the planet? I forget what it's called.
The magnetosphere.
Yeah, the magnetosphere. It would all be contained inside instead of on the outside, so it would just be havoc.
Well, yeah, and if, again, just going off the picture that was shown, if the Earth was indeed open at both of the poles, then any scientific expedition, that ever went to either one of the poles would have been a failure immediately, because the radiation there would be so bad that the people on the expedition would die before they could conduct any kind of experimentation on anything. I mean, if you consider that at that at that magnitude, we'd be receiving, radiation. Oops, sorry. We'd be receiving radiation all over the Earth, and then you figure at the poles would be the epicenter of that radiation. Then you could logically conclude that anybody close enough to receive the direct radiation would die fairly quickly and obviously very painfully. I mean, the fact that people have not died from this specific for this specific reason that have gone on, National Science Foundation expeditions to the North Pole that should be enough to debunk it, right? I mean, how many expeditions have been led to the North Pole?
That guy flew his airplane through it, and he was fine, so clearly you're wrong.
Not only that, but going back to, now if you remember some of the more conservative is the word I'm going to use, some of the more conservative or even the word fundamentalist beliefs in Christianity, is that around the outside of the earth there was a giant hollow sphere of water that protected the earth from the harsh radiation of the sun and allowed humans to live forever, and everything was larger, including humans. That's one of those, not many people believe it kind of things. But if you look at it explains this perfectly, actually, because if you look at this diagram, you can see right here, there's little water waves. This is mostly water on the inside of here. So obviously, the water in this sense is acting as the same sense as in the origin story of the Earth, and it's absorbing the radiation and protecting not only the Agarthans and the Shambhala-Alayans from this radiation, but it's also protecting the people that live on the outer surface. Oh, and to bring it back out, to talk about those little seismic waves, look, you can see seismic waves here, and you can see bursts of air. And as you can see by this diagram, this very scientific diagram, everyone is fine. So everything in here is happening, and everyone in this picture is okay, so it has to be true.
Okay, another basic question, but if we lived at the center of the Earth, as that diagram showed, with the sun at that magnitude and, water all around, aside from the radiation, wouldn't that create humidity way past humidity which humanity could withstand? I mean, wouldn't the humidity be so great that we'd all die of, heat death?
No, God wouldn't let that happen to his chosen people. Plus, we live on the outside, not the inside, and fuck them.
Okay, I guess
this is bad to
conclusive.
say, but I really want to make up something like this and put it out there and see if it catches on, because this is so stupid, man. I think we could come up with something that could catch on like this.
No, I think that proliferating more false information is horrible. And even though I put a troll in the chat because I was trolling Iron Chariot there for a minute, things like this, the reason that we continue to find more and more conspiracies and false theories out there is because of assholes like us continuing to look for shit to talk about. We just stumble upon this, and then we make a video, and all of a sudden a whole bunch of people are talking about it, or we see someone else talking about it. So the proliferation of information, as we disseminate this information outward, and as information is disseminated to us, just adding another false theory to the laundry list of horrible, stupid shit that's out there, I think is kind of irresponsible. Yeah, so we have Rolf Splooge 1284 says, apparently no Mooscal this week, and I'm also kind of sad about that. I miss Mooscal. But I'm sure that she's with us in spirit, or maybe she's visiting Agartha this week. Maybe when she comes back, we should interview her on the Shambhala-Alayans and how the spaceship base to and from other galaxies, what it really looks like.
The thing about creating some kind of false theory like that really interests me the most is the fact that after we conducted the experiment and came out and said it was false, we made it up, it was a social experiment. If it did indeed catch on during that time, there would be people defending it with their dying breath, even though we, as the creators of it, would come out and say, no, we made it up. At that point, there would be somebody arguing against us, the people that created it, that we are lying and trying to cover up some great truth.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't do it. But like, that's actually happened a couple of times. The Slender Man thing was created on Reddit. Now people think that that's real. And also, kind of in the same vein, there was some I don't know, scientist group wanted to prove how easy it is to get falsified information peer reviewed. Basically, I forget the exact story, but they set out to prove this thing and get it peer reviewed in all these papers, and it worked. And I'm not sure if people think it's real or not, but yeah, other people have done the same things, and I don't think it has good results.
Well, I mean, it's not hard to get false information out there, but more importantly, it's not hard to get people to believe it either. Because if I may paraphrase somebody again, Neil deGrasse Tyson said, we live in a society where people are still afraid of the number 13. They think ladders are bad luck. People still throw salt over their shoulder when they spill it because they think the devil is standing behind them. I mean, it's ridiculously easy because we are ridiculously gullible. Especially, I see it a lot in the U.S., I guess just because we're an extremely religious country, but it's, as a people in general, we are so gullible, and I can't help but wonder what it would take to get rid of that gullibility, or what it would take to convince people to get the education needed to not be so gullible.
Do you have something on that you'd like to say, Buck, as we wrap it up for our next segment?
Yeah, I was talking a bit about that kind of stuff earlier, so I'm not going to repeat all that. But I think I've said on, well, it's the topic of the last show, the sociology of religion, and very similarly, the sociology of this situation, where people who are brought up in a society that doesn't value knowledge, who doesn't reward people for knowing things about the world. I recall a few episodes where, like when Bill O'Reilly says tides come in, tides go out, where Sherry Shepard said, "Oh, how I don't need to know that the world's around. That doesn't feed my kids," shit like that. You're gonna end up with people believing stupid crap like this.
Right, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I mean, just looking at this hollow earth theory in the Agartha, and then you look at all the other theories that we'll probably discuss here in the future, you're right. I mean, there's so many things that people just take for granted and assume because someone else said it, and they said it with more assertion and confidence than anyone else has said anything, so they believe that. What do you have, Matt? Do you have anything that you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. People are just, like you guys said, gullible, but yeah, I don't know what it would take. I almost think, I mean, for me, being fooled a couple times as a child helped me not want that to happen anymore, and I kind of learned my lesson. I said, I better, you know what I mean, figure out how to figure out. I better figure out how to tell what's real and what's not, so I don't get taken advantage of anymore. I don't. Hopefully, people just learn from their mistakes and realize. I don't think people reflect on themselves very much and look at themselves. They just, I don't know. But I just want to warn you guys. My battery might go out. I'm trying to charge it, but the charger has a short. So okay, just so if I drop, I might not come back. Just so you guys know.
All right, thanks. So, I mean, yeah, like you're saying, all of us or some of us, even people watching this video, if they watch this video in the future, because no one's watching right now, I don't think, but whatever. So, we've all been fooled by something, whether it was the Easter Bunny or Jesus Christ of Nazareth or Allahu Akbar, or the Prophet Muhammad, or if we've been fooled by something. It's so easy sometimes to just assume something is correct rather than to take the 30 or 45 seconds to put the information in Google and read a couple peer-reviewed articles. So sometimes we believe things out of laziness, and sometimes we believe things like Agartha and Hollow Earth just out of possibly fear. We're told that if we don't believe it, something bad is going to happen to us, something infinitely horrible and infinitely bad that we cannot even imagine how bad it is, but it's going to happen if we don't believe it. And some of us have been emotionally tortured and tormented, and we have been forced and strong-armed into some beliefs, and some of us have been able to get free of that, oppression. It's nothing short of oppression, personal oppression. And I hope that someone watching this video tonight can draw maybe some personal connections and maybe can help remove themselves from that oppression in their lives that they're experiencing. On a lighter note, I'd like to take it over to our current event. So let me share this real quick and go back.
Live from the HCNN news desk, this is this week's current event. This week, Arian Foster, who is very, very good at football, or at least was in his younger days, is an open atheist. He's not the first openly atheist football player, but he's the only good one. So there is a lot of a lot of news coverage right now of this event. It is because in sports, anything outside of the waspy religious or that kind of norm happening is very odd. And it's part of this whole macho, masculine society. Arian Foster had earlier in his career opened up as the first openly vegan player in the NFL because that would be something that a football player would apparently have to keep quiet. And so he came on to Openly Secular, which I recommend highly. Maybe our Atheist Spotlight today, because it's a really great site where everybody who, not everybody, but a lot of people who are in this position come out with their atheism and showcase it and explain why. And so it's interesting because, first of all, being a football-playing atheist, and secondly, and this is a big problem in our atheist community now, we don't have as many minorities as we should, and so it's always nice to see. And then, there's quotes in the article about people asking him if he's a devil worshipper and, shit like that people in less educated regions tend to be. And a lot of football players tend to come from economically disadvantaged areas and take on the physical activities, being their way out of that, being the common sports narrative. And as such, having more progressive beliefs in sports has been something that's not only not occurred quite as much, but has been frowned upon. So to come out as an atheist, I'm sure he's going to get backlash from idiot football players, idiot sports writers, and idiot sports fans. I am one of these idiot sports fans, so I'm very much part of that. But I hope that whoever you can get can spread the conversation of atheism to new and uncharted territories. And with that, I will send it over to the guys.
What, so you ain't no devil worshiper? I know that all atheists are devil worshippers. Nah, evil bastards. I don't want an atheist representing my team.
We kind of see this narrative all the time. We see very, very similar narratives. You worship the devil, it's just the similar responses that you see here. And it's just stuff that we do actually see fairly recurring. Iron, you had something?
Yeah. I'd just like to point out, in case anybody doesn't know, that he plays for the Houston Texans, which is also kind of an interesting thing. I mean, Texas is one of those states where I might not even want to come out as an atheist. Like, that's one of the rougher states, for atheists. It's obviously part of the Bible Belt, but they're known for, God, beer, and guns. Or at least that's how I understand it. So I think it's funny because that's an extra element of it too. Not only did he come out, but he came out in a region of the country. If Tom Brady or somebody had come out as an atheist in New England, it wouldn't be nearly as bad. I don't think, obviously, there's, nationwide fans of each team, but I definitely think it adds an extra element of interestingness to the whole mix that he came out in a region of the country where it is almost not accepted at all to be atheist. And I know the article said August 6th. I don't know how old the story actually is. I don't imagine it's much older than that. And I'd be interested to follow it from here on out, since this is presumably the beginning of it, whatever it is. I like to see how that affects his career, because that'll kind of, at least for me, I feel like it'll give me a look at people's current views on atheists. We were talking a few episodes ago about the statistics and how atheism is becoming a little more acceptable. But I feel like with this, if we kept a close watch on it, we'd have an up close and personal, front row view. And I think it'd be a good indication of what people's thoughts are on atheists.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It's any way we can get the word out is great. You mentioned his career prospects based on that announcement that he made, and It reminds me very much of the case of Michael Sam, who last year was the first gay player drafted in the NFL, and he has been allegedly blacklisted from most teams, and his stock dropped in the draft tremendously after his announcement, and so the problem isn't just players. It goes up to management and ownership where they don't want to have to deal with this, because what they have is a company, a product. And as with any company or product, you don't want to come out on any political issue, or you're going to be alienating a lot of people who would use your company or product. It would be very negative for sales. And so there's this very slow acceptance of things like being gay, being atheist, from sports community at large, has a lot to do with that, where it's slower than society at large. All right.
I want to say, not a fan of football at all, or I'm not a fan of any sports, to be honest. But I mean, I'm not against them. But so I've never heard of this person before, but I did hear about the story, and I think it's awesome that he came out. And this isn't a direct quote, but I believe he said he'd rather be himself than make more money, basically, which that's ultimately what's going to happen. Like Buck said, his value as a player is going to go down because of this. And I feel like it's up to us to support these people 10 times more than anybody else would, because we have to counter that stigma. I mean, there's probably not much we could do at this point, but I think he knew going into it that that's what was going to happen from what I heard. And in an ideal world, we would be able to back them up and counter the negativity. But that's all I have to say on it, really.
Yeah, I'd hope that we'd be able to kind of counterbalance that. And the quote, it was actually in the article. It said, "After a while, what's an extra dollar compared to the freedom of being you? That's the choice that I made." So you were spot on. And I didn't know that Buck was a Texan. But I think that I've learned a lot this episode about Agartha and the Hollow Earth theory, all the, several that we talked about, including, the other dozens of Hollow Earth theories out there. So if you guys want to learn more about that, please just Google Agartha and two of the...
Real quick, do they have any football teams down there? Maybe we could get like a interplanetary match going.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be kind of, intraplanetary. Yeah, I think that would be awesome. That would be really good. And maybe we need to get Arian Foster on our team, if he's that good. I don't know. I'm not really really that big into football, but I support Arian Foster and his courage definitely to come out as openly secular in such a religious field. No pun intended. So tonight, I know here's in support of Texas and their seculars there, we do have the atheist experience, but for the Atheist Spotlight, I would still like to highlight someone that I have followed and who's one of my earliest backers for quite some time. And I will actually pull up his channel. I don't normally do that, but I'll pull up his channel here. His name is Jose Afonso, and he has a playlist called Caustic Talks. And he was one of the first individuals that I had speaking about Islam from an inner perspective. And he has several videos here that are really good. I like his style. And some of them he comes across as a black and white. He has more of an artistic presence when he comes across as his style, and he's very careful with his words, much like Buck is. He's very particular about how he pronounces them because of his accent, but he has a lot of great content on his channel, so that's who I'm highlighting as tonight. But in honor of Arian Foster and Texas and all the secular Texans, I'm going to also throw up the Atheist Experience as well. So we're going to have two spotlights tonight. I would like to thank everyone for coming by. I'm pretty sure that the other clerics agree with me when I state how grateful I am that you're watching this video and the content, and I hope that you've gotten something from this. I know that we've had several laughs here on the show tonight, and I hope that this will send you down a rabbit hole that you might not be able to come back from doing all of this research on these topics. So everyone, I would like to say good night and deuces.